Welcome to our In the Kitchen today. I am really excited. Our theme today is, well, it's Halloween, and our theme today is our knife skills and how the knives we choose, the knife skills that we have are really going to be that piece that helps you to actually go into the kitchen, turn on some music, and chop my vegetables. It's actually very nourishing for my nervous system. It might not be for you, but minutes if he's cutting. I don't think he cuts a lot anymore, but I'm sure he spent a lot of time when he was apprenticing cutting. Okay. And I'm very careful. It's sharp. On this side, this is the handle. On this side, I have one finger on this side of the blade, and my thumb is on the other side. I'm holding it like this. Is that too close? So I have it just like this. I hold one side, the other side of the blade, and then I shake it. It's got some nice color to it. And you get the beautiful sweetness of your cranberries. Welcome to our In the Kitchen today. I am really excited. Our theme today is, well, it's Halloween, and our theme today is how to use your knife. And we're going to talk about knife skills because when you are eating plant forward, you're eating your vegetables and your fruits, you spend a little more time doing prep and cutting up vegetables. When my mom, I noticed it, but when my mom went plant-based, she's vegetarian, so she went plant-based a few years ago. She said to me, boy, I feel like I spend all my time cutting up vegetables now. And so it's true, if you're eating plant-based, you're going to be doing more prep of veggies. So you want to make sure as you're prepping those veggies, you're doing it in a way that's easy for you, because if it's not, you might not keep going. And our knife skills and how the knives we choose, the knife skills that we have are really going to be that piece that helps you to actually enjoy it. Okay. Because for me, when I have the time in my life and I go into the kitchen, turn on some music, and chop my vegetables, it's actually very nourishing for my nervous system. It might not be for you, but it's something maybe you can also learn to enjoy. Now, if I'm in a hurry, it doesn't work. But if I have time, like on a Sunday afternoon and I'm not in any rush, oh, chopping vegetables is like therapy for me. And I hope that you can get there someday too. All right. So for today, before we get started, I want to share with you, I'm going to pin myself now, but I want to share with you that tomorrow is November the 1st. Today is Halloween. Tomorrow is my 12th anniversary of going plant-based. And so I am celebrating at noon tomorrow, same time as we are right now. If you're available, I would love for you to come and join me. There's a sign up here. It's a Zoom sign up. You can register here. And we were going to have some fun. I'm going to talk about my journey. I'm also going to talk about what I've learned and some of the amazing things that have happened to me along this journey. And when I started 12 years ago, it wasn't to go plant-based. It had nothing to do with plant-based. I wanted to get off of sugar because I found out I was addicted to sugar. So if you want to know more about my story and how I ended up here, I can't believe it. If you would have told me 12 years ago I'd be here, I would have laughed at you. I had a plan. I was working till I was 70 in my corporate job. And that has changed. All right. So I do have a presentation that I want to share with you on knife skills. But before we do that, I got a couple things I want to do because we're going to take some of the not all, but some of so the veggies that I prepped today and show you how to cut are either going to go into a lentil soup, which I'm going to make later, or it's going to go into a quinoa salad that we're making. So the first thing I want to do is put the quinoa onto, and I also, for my quinoa salad, I have almonds. So I'm putting these raw almonds into the oven to toast. And you can actually use slivered almonds if you want. I prefer to just use the raw almonds. I'm putting those into the oven. I'm going to put them on for about 8 minutes. And then once you can smell the fragrance of the almonds, that's when they're done and ready to go. You have to be careful. I have to be careful not to burn them. So I put a timer on. I'm also putting on some quinoa. I have a cup of quinoa that I've soaked. And I have, so 1 cup of quinoa and 2 cups of water. I did a little less than 2 cups, maybe about 1 cup and 3/4, because I soaked the quinoa first. So I've got a pot of water here, right here on my stove. And I'm just going to put the quinoa in there, bring it to a boil, and then turn it down.
Debbie,
Yes,
is it 350 or 375?
350. I do
Okay,
everything at 350 if I can.
okay.
All right.
Thank
Okay, so
you.
we got our almonds in the oven. Our quinoa is on the stove to boil. And once the quinoa boils, I'm going to turn it down and let it simmer. I've got a lid to cover it, and I'm going to put the timer on for 15 minutes, and it's going to be pretty much done at that point. And quinoa is one of the easiest things to make because it takes about 15 minutes. You boil the water, put your quinoa in, and then you could just put the timer on for 15 minutes, put it on a lower heat to simmer, and it just fluffs up. It's so easy. It's easier than rice, and it is full of fiber, full of protein. It is an amazing ancient grain, easy for us to, so such a nourishing food for us. Now, I soaked my quinoa because it has inhibitors, things on the outside that will cause, that are really not easy for us to digest. It's what protects the quinoa, like nuts and seeds. They have a protective coating, so we want to remove that. And if you don't remove that, if the quinoa hasn't been what I'll call washed by the manufacturer before it packages it up, it will taste pretty bitter to you. I've had that now. But here's the soaking water. So all this stuff, and I soaked it for about 2 hours this morning. That's it. So you want to try, if you can, to soak your quinoa. I was buying the President's Choice quinoa, organic quinoa, and it tended, I'm just checking my stuff here. All right, so my quinoa is boiling. I'm turning it down to a medium low on my stove here. So the President's Choice, they wash it, but you still, if you, and so it doesn't, you don't get that bitter taste. But if it still can be soaked, and you'll still get residue, dirty water like this from that soap when it's been soaked. But I bought a quinoa one time at Costco, a big bag, and I didn't soak it, and it tasted so horribly bitter. So I threw out the bag. I didn't know any better back then to soak it and all that stuff. So I used to walk to work, and we'd see pigeons all the time. And let me tell you, the pigeons ate everything. Some totally disgusting things that I would never even mention. So I thought, oh, I'll just give the quinoa to the pigeons. So there was an area by our work where they used to go under a shelter, and there'd be tons of pigeons there. So I put the quinoa down there. They did not touch it. None of it. I was like shocked. They did not want that quinoa. And for all the other stuff they ate that was disgusting, I'm like, woo, I can't believe this. All right, so now we have our quinoa boiling. So let's just do this little presentation. I think it's really important. Your knife is the most essential tool for a cook, it's like an extension of your hand, and that is from Alan Ducasse, a chef. So what are the essentials of a knife? What do you need? And I'm going to tell you, ladies, you do not need a big arsenal of knives. Literally, you need 2 knives. That's it. I have 3. I'm going to show you my 3, but essentially a chef's knife. This is what you're going to use to cut your fruits and vegetables and other foods with thick rinds or skins. And then you'll need a paring knife to trim the vegetables and fruits. You use it in the air. It is not something you put on your cutting board or your cutting surface. So those are the only 2 knives that you need. You do not need to buy a big whole butcher block full of knives. You also should get a honing steel or rod. This actually helps revive the edge of the knife after you've been cutting with it, slicing or chopping. It does not sharpen the knife. What happens is, as you're cutting, if you can imagine the very thin edge of your knife. Okay, I got to check my almonds. My timer just went off. My almonds are smelling delicious. I'm just putting my timer back on for my quinoa. All right. So if you imagine that you can see the edge of the knife, that sharp edge, and you could look right down it. I'm going to show you. So here's my knife. Okay. If you could look right down the blade, I don't want to touch it. Okay, here. If you could look down it, as you use it, the particles start to widen. They kind of gap. And your honing rod, this kind of rod, what it does is it brings those particles back together so that they're tight with each other. And that's what a honing rod does. It does not sharpen your knife. It is only bringing it back together. And a chef, a true chef, will probably use their honing steel or rod about every 20 minutes while they're cutting. I try to remember to do it before I start. I don't always, but I try. The other thing you want to have is a wooden cutting board, okay, not plastic, because then you get the particles of plastic into your food, but a wooden cutting board for your doing your vegetables. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about knife safety. And one of the things people think, it's kind of a myth, is that a sharp knife is dangerous. I'm going to tell you, a dull knife is dangerous. A sharp knife is what you need. So if you have sharp knives like the ones that I have, you want to hold it securely. You want to anchor your cutting boards so they're not sliding around, and I'll show you how to do that. When you're cutting, you want to keep your fingertips curled back so you don't cut your fingers. Keep your eye on your knife, not somewhere else. Take your time. This is where you can get into a beautiful rhythm with your cutting, and it just can be so relaxing. And if the knife falls, well, step back. I've had that happen a couple of times, and thankfully no one was hurt, but it's only happened a couple of times. So this is your knife safety. So how do you care for your knife? So first of all, always use a wooden cutting board. So your plastic cutting boards will have bacteria when it cut in the cuts, and also you've got the plastic particles that you don't see that can get into your food, and then you can ingest it. Do not cut on glass, granite, or steel. This is going to dull your knives very quickly. Wash your knives with warm soapy water from the handle to the tip, and then dry it and put it away right away. Do not wash your knives in the dishwasher. It actually will ruin that. Remember I told you about that thin layer and how it separates? The particles of steel will separate. That will happen in your dishwasher. It will ruin the knives. Or don't leave them in the sink either. I mean, right away, your sink is probably stainless steel or something like that. And so it's going to dull the knives. Also, if you leave them in the sink, you might actually end up cutting yourself, or someone could cut themselves, especially if there's soapy water in the sink. My knives are like I have to say, my knives are like babies to me. They are like my little children. I am so careful with them. And my kids don't use my chef's knife. They use other knives. It's like I protect them for sure. Now you want to store them you could put them in a knife block, one of those blocks that you can leave out on your counter. People will have a magnetic rack that they'll have on the wall, and their knives will be on the wall, or a knife holder. And in my house, we have a knife holder. I'll show you a little picture of what it could look like. So all my knives are in one drawer because I have more than I need. We have a whole series of them, but I only use two. And they're all standing up. They're all protected and separated. And they have their own little spot in the drawer. And then you use the honing rod at the beginning of each use. And if you're doing a lot of chopping, you could use it often. And like I said, chefs like Gordon Ramsay, oh my gosh, he's doing his honing rod every 20 minutes if he's cutting. I don't think he cuts a lot anymore, but I'm sure he spent a lot of time when he was apprenticing cutting. And you can actually sharpen them 1 to 2 times a year. You can use a sharpening stone or get them professionally sharpened. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my knives as well. And my knives have a lifetime warranty, and I can send them to the manufacturer to get them sharpened for free. If there's any reason that they should be replaced, they're replaced for free. They're called Cutco knives. They're my favorite. And so that's what I do. I also have, Cutco has a little sharpener that I use. Now, if you see on the picture, that is a sharpening stone there. That's what it looks like. And so you could get a sharpening stone to do that, or just get them sharpened, like I said, by a professional once or twice a year. So here's storing your knives. There's in your drawer. Mine looks a little different. My knives are vertical. They're standing up. They're not horizontal. But each knife has its own spot. Here's your typical butcher block for the knives, and then all this. And you can see this particular set of knives that are on the magnet on the wall happen to be all the same kind of chef's knives like what I have. All right. So when you're holding the knife, you're going to grip the handle with 3 fingers, and then rest the index finger flat against the blade on one side. You're going to hold the thumb on the blade on the opposite side to give you more stability. So I want to show you what that looks like. Okay, can't see myself here. Hang on a second. All right, here's my knife, okay? And I'm very careful, it's sharp. On this side, this is the handle. On this side, I have 1 finger on this side of the blade, and my thumb is on the other side. I'm holding it like this. Is that too close? So I have it just like this. I hold one side, the other side of the blade, and then I shake. It's like I'm shaking hands with my knife. That's how you hold a knife. You see this a lot? No, you hold it like this. Keep your fingers back. All right. I think my quinoa might be ready. So let's do the quinoa check right now. I'm just going to because my stainless steel pots are hot. All right. So let me show you. Here's my quinoa, ladies, here in my pot. It's nice and fluffy. There's no water left. So what I like to do now is take the quinoa, put the lid back on, and put it on the stove again. Got my lid. I'm going to put it back on the stove, and I've turned the burner off. Now, I have electric stove. If you have a gas stove, it's not going to work the same. But I put it back on the stove. I'm going to let it sit there for about 5 minutes while the burner is going to cool off, but the burner is not on right now. All right, back to the knife. So I'm holding my knife. I'm doing this on this side. Let me see. You can see one side, the other side. That is how you hold your knife. That's your chef's knife. Back to my presentation. Okay. So, and then as you're cutting, you want your fingers on your other side are going to be it's like a claw. They're going to be holding the object. Your thumb is going to be behind your fingertips, your four fingers, and the thumb acts as a guide for whatever food you're cutting. And then the knife blade can rest against your knuckles to prevent you from cutting your fingers. So you've probably seen chefs do that. I will say that's not something I'm too skilled in, but you have a claw. I have my carrot. I'm going to hold like this and then cut on this side. No fingers out this way. That's how you cut your fingers. And if your knife is dull, it's going to take more force and there's more chance that you can slip. And really, it's aggravating. My mom used to come to my house and complain all the time about how dull my knives were. We didn't take care of our knives ever. And now I complain about her knives. I'm like, okay, where's the sharpest knife here? It's amazing. When you get used to a sharp knife, you will notice the difference. But it does take time, to get used to these things. All right, so back to my presentation. Oh, I think I'm pretty much done. I don't know if anybody remembers Jack Lalani. He was the juicing guy, him and his wife, and he used to do it on like those infomercials. He was like the scrawny guy who turned to juicing and health, and he lived to be, I think, close to 100 years old. He was like crazy, all the way up to his, like, so much energy. That's what I mean by crazy with energy, all the way up to when he passed away. So that's what we all want, is to have crazy energy and just love life. Oh, Juju says you have one of his juicers. Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's cut up. Now we have our quinoa ready. We have everything ready to go. I'm going to do some cutting. All right, so here are my knives. I got to move. Sorry, I can't see you guys here because I've got stuff in the way. Okay. Here are my knives. So I have my chef's knife, which you've already seen. I have a paring knife. I have two paring knives. That's why I have three knives. I've got this paring knife, and I also have a smaller one. So I've got two. And so paring knife, so I have a carrot here. I could either chop off the end by putting it on the cutting board with my big knife, or I could just cut the end off in the air. So when you're using your paring knife, you're going to a similar way, but you're going to use your thumb as your guide here. And you don't cut yourself. It's really easy. And so I use that for like peeling or anything I'm doing with my, that I want to kind of finer work with my knives. I have my cutting board. So I have three wooden ones. I bought this little one because I was tired of bringing my bigger ones out. This is for little small things. Make sure that your cutting board is the right size, that you have room to work on it. This is my everyday cutting board that I have in my kitchen. I use this for everything. I bought this a while ago and I love it. And then I have this big one that I store because I don't have room in my kitchen. And so this is a big one. And I use it for my demos because then I can put more stuff, and it has lots of room. You want to make sure you have room. Let me just move this up a little bit, move it back a bit. All right. Good thing I'm short. So this is now, it's not the sharpening stone, but it's from Cutco, and it has the sharpening stone in it. It's right in the middle. And I had no idea how to use it after I got it. And then I went to Costco and the Cutco guy was there. And I went up to him. I said, I love these knives. And he says, oh, do you know how to use this thing? And I said, no, show me. And so this one, you put it down on the ground, like on the cupboard. And then when you want to, you actually drag it perpendicular straight through from the top down. And that's how you sharpen it. And so this works easy for me. It's a good temporary sharpener. But you can also, like I said, the Cutco knives, they're made in the US, but you can get them, most knives like Henkel, buy good knives. Henkel is a good brand. So some German brands, Japanese brands. I have, this one is from in the US. And I really, like I said, these are like my babies, and Cutco knives are on sale. They're not cheap. I think these are at least $200 for just this knife. But yeah, I mean, I think I got mine in a set, but they're on sale between now and Christmas. This is their time. They have their Christmas sale if you're in the market for a knife. So my whole set is literally, we're a Cutco family now. We were converted. And so the honing rod, all you do is use about a 30-degree angle and just drag your knife across on both sides. And if you watch Gordon Ramsay, he does this like nothing. But you know, you don't need to be fast, you don't need to be fancy, you don't need to be Gordon Ramsay unless you want to be. And here's, yeah, just drag it about a 30-degree. And so that brings those little fine micro steel pieces all back together where they separate as you're using them. All right. Are you ready, ladies? Let's do some cutting. Now, that cutting action, let me start with my celery. I'll just show you celery. Your cutting action, you put your tip of your knife on your board, and your cutting action, you know, I'm holding my knife, is to go rocking back and forth. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to rock back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so that's how your cutting action is. I'm going to save this for my juice. So I'm going to hold it with my claw, with my thumb behind. Now you know, you don't have to be, like I said, right up against your knuckles. If you want, you can. And just start slowly. And your tip of your knife stays on your cutting board. And you go back and forth in this motion. And that's it. And I'm just dragging my hand back as I go. All right. Oh, and I do it even wrong. So the best thing to do when so I'm going to move these out of the way. I'll make sure is to use the back side of the knife. And that's something I forget, but use the back side of the knife. And how easy was that to cut up some celery? Now I have my carrot here. So now you can see I peeled my carrot. Normally I don't peel them, but I peeled this because I'm making soup and my daughter won't eat it if the carrots aren't peeled. But if you can, leave the peel on the carrots because that will have more nutrients. There's nutrients in the skins now. So I'm going to do the same thing. Now carrots roll around. So if you're concerned about your carrot rolling around, here's what you do. I'm just going to take off the end. And start by taking an end and just making a little base for you. So I'm just going to take one piece and cut it so it will stay. So I did a flat side here. So it will stay on my cutting board and it's not going to be rolling around. And so I do the same motion here, just back and forth. And you can get faster, but you know, this motion is very soothing for you. Again, my tip is on the ground. And that's it. There's a carrot. Easy peasy. And I'll put those on the side. All right. Now I'm going to let me do the peppers now. So I got a couple ways that you can do peppers. I've got a couple here. I'm going to show you the way that my mom taught me. And this is to kind of for the seeds. Now, if you're doing something where you want them all nice and straight and even, you're going to chop off the top where it's bumpy and the bottom where it's also bumpy. And then that way you can make them nice and nice sticks. So for me, that doesn't matter so much. I'm good. But if you want them nice and uniform. So what I do is this has got 4 chambers. This pepper is 1, 2, 3, and 4 chambers. Here you can see the 4 bulbs sticking out. What I do is I cut around the chambers. So I start holding at the top with my hands out, and I'm just going to cut around the ribs. So I take off a piece, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now here's the white ribs of it that holds it together. I'm just going to go around that and kind of in a circular motion. And as you go around, it starts not, you got to be careful and hold it up. So I have 4, I took the 4 chambers off, and all of the seeds are in the middle. Now I'll cut this off and give it to my dogs because they love it. Don't tell them that's what I'm doing because they'll be here. And so then I can cut this into, so I've got, again, my knife action. I'm holding the end and I'm just cutting around it using that same knife action. Now I want to cut it into a square. So I'm going to put it all together in a little pile. I'm using my hand as the claw. My thumb is behind holding this little package together. And then I can do the same action this way to cube my. And then when you get to the end, just do them one by one. Don't get fancy because that is where you're going to cut yourself. I'm going to take this and put it in my bowl because this is going to be part of my quinoa salad. I just kind of push it onto my knife and just making sure that I'm not going near the blade. Now, if I wanted it to be very uniform, I could cut off the 2 ends that are curled up. Cut off this end as well. And then it's a little flatter for me to make it uniform. Oops, I cut one. And then I can cut it this way. These peppers I got are pretty small ones. And there's my cut. So I've got some of that. I'm going to use that part. And then I have a red pepper. I'm going to do it a different way. I'm getting my favorite spoon out. I have some spoons that they seem to have sharper edges to them, not that they're sharp. So this one I'm going to do a different way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the end off altogether. And I've got the end off. Now you can use this part, like don't just throw that out. You can chop those up. I do this when I'm doing roasted peppers in the oven. And then I just try my best to use my spoon to get rid of the membranes that are attached to the side of the pepper. So I don't get too many. So then I can take out the inside, and I might get a few of the seeds in there, not too many. I just kind of scrape them out. The seeds are not going to hurt you. And so this I can use and stuff it and do a stuffed pepper in the oven. Ooh, that sounds like a recipe we need to do, ladies. And then if I'm not using it for a stuffed pepper. So when I'm doing stuffed peppers, I will use that and I'll take and cut this part up and use that in my filling. So I use all of the pepper. So for me, I mean, you could cut this up this way. And again, do the similar motion. And there you've got pepper rings if you want a pepper ring. For me, I'm going to just cut it in half. And I'm going to just cut around it because I want to, again, I'm going to use it in dice it up. So I have 2 colors of peppers in my quinoa salad. And as you get to the end, just do it manually. Don't be a hero here, or lazy, I guess. So I'm going to add that. So I've got peppers in my quinoa salad. Okay, and before we go off of the cutting and finish with the knife skills, I want to address doing onions. Who likes cutting onions? This is the tough one because I'm just going to, So my cutting board is pretty heavy, but while I'm remembering, let's say I'm going to use my small cutting board here. So I have my small one and it can move around and you want it stable. Easiest way is to take a wet cloth, put it down and put your cutting board on top and it's not moving. So this is the way to stabilize your cutting board. So it doesn't go anywhere. All right, go out of the way, cutting board. Now my onion. So I've got the end that had the green leaves that stick out, and then I've got the root end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this onion and cut it in half. So be careful. And if you have a sharp knife, this will be pretty easy. Again, aim to put stabilize your knife end on your cutting board if you can. I'm just going to cut through that. So I have 2 halves. Now I can cut off the end. This is the end, not the root end, the end that was sticking out of the ground that had the green shoots on it. And then I can just peel off the layer of the skin very easily. So sometimes you need to go a couple of layers here to get the whole thing on this one. So I take the skin off, put it in my compost. I'm just going to wipe my knife and my cutting board. So the way they teach chefs in chef school is to cut slits through, not all the way to the end. You never cut to the end, you just cut slits. And then you cut this way, a couple of slices, and then you chop it this way. But I actually have another way that I prefer. And I saw somebody doing it this way yesterday when I thought, yes, he said, I learned how to do this as a chef, but I like this way better. So what I do is, and I learned from him though, what he does, I cut right through, but he doesn't cut right through, but he cuts almost right through and cutting his vertical slices across the onion this way. But not right to the end. So it's going to hold, not going right through to the end holds it together. That was the piece I wasn't doing. So I learned from him that. So then now I'm going to take off the end and my onion is held together on this end, but all of the pieces are off. And so then what I have here, all I need to do is go around the onion and do cuts around the onion. And I've got my end is holding it because it's, and I'm just going to cut around this half moon and away you go. And then again, when you get to the end, you're going to do a little different. And so you can chop it and cut it up. All right. And then I have diced onion very quickly. Let me put this in my stock pot because it's going to make my eyes burn. All right. Put that in the stock pot. And then that's it. Voila. I'm gonna make my soup later on. And that is a little class on how to use knives so that you can actually enjoy cutting your vegetables up. It's so much easier and nicer to do it that way. All right, I have one more thing to cut up, and that is, let's make our quinoa salad now. Okay, my daughter loves, this is my mom's recipe. We're going to add in some quinoa into, I've got my bowl with my peppers. It adds the color. Gonna add in some quinoa. I would usually let the quinoa cool a little bit more, but it's okay. It's going to be a warm quinoa salad, but you can cool it and have it cold. And then I'm going to add in, some chickpeas. And guess who forgot to open the chickpeas? Me. So I hope you ladies are okay with imagining you've got chickpeas in here. So that's just a can of chickpeas that you rinse off. Gonna add in some cranberries. I have cranberries. Now watch with your cranberries because a lot of the brands are full of sugar. These ones are actually, they have been soaked in apple juice. So that's a little better because cranberries are, the sweetness comes from the apple juice or from the sugar. I'm just gonna add some cranberries in. And then I'm gonna add in some of my nuts. Now, I'm just gonna take a few nuts and just kind of cut them up on the board. Again, the same way, I'm just going to do a couple cuts. I don't like to do too much because they're very small. This is where, to make them more slivered, this is where if you want to buy slivered almonds and toast them. And I'm just going to add in some nuts. And we have a beautiful quinoa salad here. And so my daughter loves it just like this, with the chickpeas in it too. She loves it like this. She's not a sauce person. You can see it's got some nice color to it. And you get the beautiful sweetness of your cranberries and, you know, the crunch and the color from your peppers. You could add in some onion. I got some other things you can do, and you could add a dressing. So I have a lemon dressing, easy to make. So we could add a little lemon dressing here. And I've got the recipe for that too. I've got a little bit of flax oil, give it a little bit of oil. So I'm just going to add a touch of flax oil. So it's about a tablespoon of everything. I have lemon juice in my cup already. I'm going to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Just a little bit. I have some Dijon mustard. You could add in some garlic too if you wanted. So I add about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard here. We get the Costco size. And then and some maple syrup to balance it off. And so I could take that, stir it around. Like, how easy is that to make a dressing? Some very easy dressings that you can make. So I'm going to tell you, you don't need to go buy the ones in the store that are full of chemicals. You can make your own dressings like this. And then you can, I'm not going to pour it on because my daughter will not be happy with me, but you can pour it on and move it around. Make sure you add in your chickpeas and you have a beautiful salad. All right. Okay, ladies. Let me move my cutting board and get you over here. And see if there's any questions. I am also, let me, before I forget, because I did that a couple weeks ago, let me get the recipe for you. So you can have the recipe for our lemony quinoa salad. And what I will do is I will have the video on there, and I'll also give you the presentation that you can have later when I get the video. I'll post all of that together. So here in the chat is the link. Yeah, Juju, I love chickpeas too. There's the link to the recipe. I can, yeah, so you can julienne the carrots for sure. Oh yeah. So Juju, did I do okay with my knife skills that I learned when I took my raw food chef course? I hope that I did. For us in our, home cooks, we still can use these skills, and it's so much easier when you do it the right way. And just take your time, just enjoy it. All right. And so Juju says she bought her knife with her cutting board. Yeah, so you get different sizes and different knives. That's perfect, right? Get a whole set and a file to sharpen it, which is perfect. So those are easy ways that you can do that. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any questions. I'm just going to pop my celebration link in. So if you're available tomorrow at the same time, like at noon Eastern, I would absolutely love for you to join me for my 12-year anniversary of when I decided to take me as the important person and do something for me and get off of my sugar addiction. And it led me down this path to where I am today. And I am so grateful that I found this path. All right. So thank you, everyone. I'm so glad to have you here in my community. And I hope that you have a great weekend. And if you have time, I know it's Saturday, middle of the day, but can't help it. November 1st is a Saturday this year. So we're doing it on Saturday. So enjoy your weekend and hope to see you here tomorrow.
Bye, Debbie. Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.